Hello, I'm in my bed in my hotel room in Newcastle as I'm currently on tour. Plenty more tour dates to come, about 20 more, I think. Go to richardherring.com/gigs. You can see everything in there. There's some previews for my new show, which is a best-of show called Richard Herring the Best. Yeah, am I right? And all the As It Occurs to Me's and Rehearlistapers that are coming up. Thanks so much, everyone, supporting the As It Occurs to Me campaign. That will be back very soon. And to give you a little taster of some of the direction we're going to go into for some of it, here's a trailer for a short film I made last year, which is now out. You can view the whole thing on Vimeo. Here's the link. Put the link in, Chris, or I'll look stupid. I'll just be doing that. It's about a husband and wife having a disagreement about something. It's just won the ECU Short Film Audience Award in Paris, which is, I don't know what that means, but it's good, and I hope you'll enjoy. I'm very proud of my part in this. Is a fantastic team. So have a look at the trailer. If you like it, go and see the full thing, and enjoy. After that, enjoy this Rehearlistapur with Alexei Sayle. I mean, bloody hell, how good is that? All right, see you in a bit. Bye.
What the hell's happened? What the fuck have you done? What did you do, Mark?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Leicester Square Theatre. Please welcome a man with an infected finger. It's Richard Herring. That's my infected finger. I'm not being rude. So hello, welcome to Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre podcast, or as all the cool kids are calling it, Rehearlistapur. Oh, God, there's lots of you. That's good. I've been quite healthy this year and been keeping quite fit. But like this weekend, I've been stricken down with various ailments. Welcome to me. I'm getting old now, so I'm just talking about the things that are going wrong. There's some people arriving late. Let's just show them so the people at home can see. There they are. They were late. They couldn't be bothered to turn up on time, like nearly everyone else turned up on time. And I got like an infected finger. I'll just show the people at home there. That's it. Yeah, good. But then, it's been really, really hurting for a few days, but on the tube on the way here, I realised I could squeeze it and get all the poison out. So I'll see if I can get any more out. It's going to be... Could you hold that? Yeah, it's weeping slightly. Do you get that, David? Yeah. Good, there we go. So that, I'd forgotten all the fun of that. Do you remember that when you were kids? Things don't really get infected so much these days, certainly since I got married. So, perhaps squeezed the odd bit of pus out of there. But talking, it's always good fun. I once had a biopsy on the end of my penis. I had a stitch put on the end of my penis once. It was fantastic. That's for another day. The Britcom Confessions has started giving some back. My guest last time was Robert Llewellyn, and there wasn't very much on there for him, but one has arrived for him, and I don't think, because obviously he hasn't been on the show yet, so I don't think this is one that's been set up by someone, so I just thought I'd read this one. This is if you don't know, this is a site on the internet where people confess their what they want to do to various comedy figures, including, well, nearly everyone you can imagine, but also people like Stuffer, and when I say people like Stuffer. This is one of Robert Llewellyn's. I would get so turned on by Robert Llewellyn fucking me hard, making me wear the Crichton mask, and then shouting at me about my faulty socket, which is... I don't know if this is a man or a woman, but they're basically saying their vagina or anus or both don't work properly, and that's why he'd be fucking me. Why? What's wrong with your socket? Why is it not working properly? So that's quite. And the fact then they'll be wearing the Crichton mask. That's properly perverted. But there are a few new ones for me. Now I don't think we can trust these because I think these are fans who are aware that I will probably read them out. That's what they're going for. There's 2 or 3 have arrived in the last kind of couple of weeks. This one is quite interesting. I wish Richard Herring would fuck me right in the middle of a golf course. I don't know how precise they are about that, whether we would have to... Part of the experience would be working out where the middle of the golf course was. No, we can't do it here. This is not the actual... Let's get the surveying equipment out again. I'm up for that. Do you mind if I do that, Katie? My wife's in. Can I? Fuck, yeah. I've got a thumbs up from my wife. As long as it's right in the middle of the golf course. If you come and catch me, like on the green of number 2, I don't really know about what golf is. That isn't the middle, is it? Rich, by definition, number 2, there are 18 holes. 19 if you include the bar, eh? The butlers are in. They love a drink. I dream about Richard Herring using his tiny hands to take off all my clothes, then touch me with them. I do have quite small hands. I do discuss that, so that is a fan of mine. I suppose anyone who wants me to fuck them would be a fan of mine, would hope. I suppose if you're a real pervert, you'd want to have sex with a comedian you didn't like, which is why I want to have sex with Paddy McGuinness. Let my anus see your cock. That's what he would say. Basically what he says every week. That is it. That's that show in a nutshell. I would, and then another one. I'd like to melt a big bar of Cadbury Dairy milk all over Richard Herring, then leave him to clean it up himself. I would quite like that. Though I am on a diet, so I don't know. I'd just have to. It would be awful because I'd just have to wipe it off with a sponge, and I wouldn't be able to. I'd like to lick that sponge with the mixture of Cadbury's Dairy milk and my own bodily hair, and there'd be pus in there. There'd be a little bit of pus. So look, let's crack on. We've got a fantastic first guest, so let's not waste any more time. He does not feature in Brit Comedy Confessions, which is a shame. I know he should do, but I think it seems that it's more younger comedians tend to under 50 comedians tend to face in there. Anyway, my guest, you will probably know him as Back from the TV series Arabian Nights. That is what he's best. That's what most of you have come to see him for tonight. Will you please welcome the incredible Alexei Sayle, ladies and gentlemen? Sit down. Pick up a mic and use it in your face. There we go, that's lovely. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you.
Good, lovely to see you. You've been a little bit of a cold as well. We've both been a bit under the weather. But it's all right, we can chill out and relax. We don't have to go.
Don't have to be entertained.
We don't have to be entertained. It's fine. So we'll get this out of the way because this is what you must be asked in all your interviews. How was it being back in the Arabian Nights? It was a TV series.
It was just an acting job I did. It was back. It was in the Arabian Nights was the Emir's favourite storyteller, and he was a dwarf.
Right.
And so I can't remember what's the story now. He has dinner with a merchant and he chokes to death.
Right.
And then for the rest of, I can't remember how the rest of the story is them trying to get rid of his body.
Right.
So basically, all of me was played by they made a rubber version of me, like a small midget version of me in rubber, which I call Little Alexei. So all I did was go to this dinner party, eat like a peanut and collapse. And then the rest of the film was the rest of the episode wasn't me, it was this rubber midget dwarf being carried around. But I showed a photograph of me and little Alexei to my mother, and she got us mixed up. She said, "That's you." And I said, "Fuck off, that's a rubber dwarf that looks like me." She said, No, that's you.
She would know, if anyone would know her own son.
You'd think that, but she didn't. She mistook me for a rubber dwarf.
So that's quite a good job, basically. You didn't, except presumably did you have to get your body covered in...
Yeah, they had to, be coated in rubber and all that. But Yeah, it was, you know, it was so, yeah, it was so, yeah, I mean, it was, you know, to have yourself played by a, you know, something made out of rubber was, you know.
Well, we had Robert Llewellyn last week. That's pretty much his career. So, so I was reading up about you because we have talked before. So I wanted to try and talk about different things than before. Firstly, you were expelled from school, which I don't think we talked about before. And I wondered what reason you were expelled from sixth form. Is that right?
Yeah, halfway through the sixth form. Well, just for being a terrible troublemaker, really. I mean, they were quite. I think. There's nothing really funny in this story.
It doesn't have to be funny.
It's just that it's.
Did you do something really horrific?
No.
I killed a teacher. And they said you can't stay anymore.
I hit a teacher. That was one of the things. Yeah, I hit a teacher. And he was, funnily enough, he was in the Communist Party. He was like my parents called Mr. Abrams.
Right.
And he hated me. He hated me all through the school, really. When he should have been looking out for me, because you know, being the child of communists. But he always hated me. Yeah,
the communists, they kind of hate. It's like Trotsky and Stalin,
yeah,
they didn't like each other, did they?
Yeah,
at least you didn't get an ice pick.
True. And anyway, he pushed me in the tuck shop queue.
Right.
And you see, my protestations about going to a rough working class school were somewhat wide of the mark. He pushed me in the tuck shop queue, and so I hit him, and then so I had to go. But there was other stuff. I think my favourite. The art teacher was leaving and was going to Quarry Bank, you know, where John Lennon and that went. And so I wanted to go with him, which I don't think he was that keen on, really. Be a bit weird, kind of like, you know, one of your pupils turn up. So they said, no, I couldn't go to Quarry Bank, but also I couldn't come back to my school either. Which left me in a kind of, it's like, you know, like that Tom Hanks film where he's stuck in the terminus, really. I'm stuck in a kind of educational limbo.
Stuck between all the Liverpool schools, just not able to go out of that triangle.
Standing outside all of them, yeah.
But you went to Chelsea College of Art and Design.
I did, yeah.
But you didn't stay in the halls, though. That was the mistake.
Oh yeah, well that's which was it was a terrible mistake. I had this friend called Wasim Abdullah, who was a Palestinian electronics engineer, and he had a flat in London in Queensgate in South Kensington, which was just a base. I thought, well, it seemed nice. It wasn't. It was just a basement with an outside toilet, and. He had the bed with like one or sometimes two girlfriends, and every bit of the floor around was like different Arabs. Apart from me, there was like down one side. And the thing that Wasim did as well, that he built his own a digital alarm clock, which was really advanced for like 1971, which was no good as a clock, but it was brilliant at killing mice. Because there was like these vibrations it gave off, and the mice would kind of come out, and then they'd touch it, and because it was very badly made as well, it would electrocute them. So there'd be this pile of corpses in the morning.
And no one cleaned them up because you're all students.
Yeah. So,
was you not scared
horrible.
About sleeping in a room with a sort of radioactive exploding alarm clock?
It wasn't radioactive. It was just you had to what? If you touched it, you get a terrible shock.
And did he woke himself up by wired up a?
He had a car headlight on a tube, a cardboard tube that was like hung over his face, and then there was a record player with the Maoist Peking opera, The East is Red, on it. And the alarm clock would set... This is a typical electronics engineer, really. It would set off anytime between like 6 a.m. and 9:15, it would go off. And the light would shine in his face, and then this Peking opera would start with like... And he'd wake up and then go to work.
Did it presumably woke you up as well, though?
Yeah.
They're rigging something like that. Though didn't someone do something like that and they... someone had something like a boulder that fell onto something, but then it fell on him. Well, I can't remember it. Never mind. I'll edit me saying it properly in at the end, and it'll look amazing. And then I'll edit a laughing, and it'll just go, they'll cut to you really laughing at something else. That was brilliant. It wasn't terrible like you thought. And the thing, the thing I'm interested in, because obviously you know all about the Comedy Store, and you've been the first MC of the Comedy Store. But you generally just answered an advert was it in the Private Eye or
yeah, my wife Linda saw an advert in Private Eye, yeah.
And just went along and you became the MC in the Comedy Store just by turning up and saying you could do it. You're not.
Well, no, I auditioned, and I was the first person who wasn't sort of mentally ill, really, that they'd seen. So, but I mean, they were. I mean, the you know, the comedy boom would have happened, you know, somewhere in Britain anyway, but not in that place because, you know, I mean, they were very fortunate, I think, to have me because I did have a pretty rare skill set then. One, that I was doing alternative comedy before it existed. Really.
Right.
You know, I'd been doing it more or less by myself. You know, well, I had like a partner, but, you know, we've been just touring in this complete vacuum, doing this material which we assumed, you know, it was like about drugs and politics and stuff, which we assumed there was an audience for, but we didn't really know that there was. But also I also had this tremendous authority, you know, that I could, you know, because it was such a wild kind of place in the early days, the Comedy Store, and I was, you know, probably, you know, one of the few people that could have really imposed, you know, kept that audience in line, really. So on the opening night and for the first few months, I did just had this kind of, you know, very, I mean, aggressive comic persona anyway, but just I was very good at kind of maintaining a kind of chaos that never quite, you know, just always teetered on the edge of chaos, you know, but never tipped over. But I was also, I think, which was I was very, and all this just came intuitively. I was very honest that I would give an act a good build-up. But then if they failed, which they generally did, I was absolutely horrible about them having it. I mean, really vile. And that was, I mean, in retrospect, that was horribly, I mean, it's cruel, you know, but on the other hand, I think in that place at that time, it worked really well, you know, just to just be shitty about people.
And better than the other way around, which sometimes some MCs do
well, you get,
start off by going, I don't know who this guy is, he might be shit, you know, and if you start like that, then that's a lot more unfair. I think if someone's died, you sort of have to.
Yeah, you got to give them a build-up, but then afterwards, you know, just really lay into them. So, yeah, they were very fortunate, I think, that I, you know, but that, I mean, I suppose that's one of the magical things about, you know, artistic movements, that, you know, the right people do just appear, really, you know.
Yeah, well, if you hadn't, then we wouldn't be talking about it.
No,
certainly you and I
it may be, yeah.
But
like, the world is ready. People are going, oh, I'd like to see some paintings with, you know, that like people are sideways and they got 3 eyes. And then this guy comes and goes, hi, I'm Pablo Picasso, and I like to paint women sideways with 3 eyes.
This is fortuitous.
It's what they call a gestalt.
Yeah. Well, there was, it obviously was this time where there was a time for a change within the entertainment industry, which maybe we're at again, but in some ways. But it was I think, like a lot of the young people won't remember the comedy of the 1970s, and even the stuff on TV was so offensive and racist and sexist and homophobic. Yeah. And so I think there had to be a kind of reaction to it. Well, it's good there was.
Yeah, and there was a different audience out there that wasn't being served. You know, you're getting this kind of, your first generation of people who've been to university and were left-wing, but also very consumerist, you know, and they were very keen to have their lifestyle kind of celebrated and mocked, I suppose, really. So, you know, it was they weren't going to be served by, you know, well, nobody will know these names, really, will they? But, you know, Colin Crompton of the Wheel Tappers and Shunters social club wouldn't be doing stuff about, you know, mocking people's habitat furniture, you know, they would, you know, or the, you know, the vociferous nature of left-wing political groups, you know. Les Dawson was never going to be doing shit like that, you know.
You never know, he might have come around to it. Yeah. But it was, I mean, I can imagine you were a very intimidating figure, because I've, you know, seen pictures of you as a younger man. I mean, you were quite a...
Yeah, but I just, I mean, it wasn't, I mean, I'm not in real life, you know, but that you know, there was something, I never really analysed it, but there was just the comic persona that had emerged, you know, in the couple of years I'd been doing sort of stand-up was very aggressive, and that was what I was interested in as a performer, was aggression, you know, winding the audience up. Yeah. And that was just a perfect, you know, I mean, stuff that I'm completely uninterested in now, but that was, that just worked fantastically well. And, in a club that started at midnight, it was cheap to get in. And
did it go on all night? Because I saw you was talking about, you would say I would put people on at 4 a.m. if you didn't like
They
them.
got me nerves, yeah. It finished about 4 a.m.
Right.
Yeah.
Did people stay? Was that just a weekend thing, or was that?
I think it was basically only a Saturday night in the end. I probably finished about 12 to 1. It must have finished. Yeah, it must have finished about 4 sometimes. Yeah.
Incredible. And it was quite dangerous. You were talking about Keith Allen, who I am a big fan of, throwing darts into the audience.
Yeah.
Was that a regular occurrence, or was that a one-off?
No. Well, it was. No, he says it. I thought it was at Goldsmiths College. He says it was at the Royal College of Art.
Right.
But he did. My favourite one. The thing about Keith was he was very. He wasn't the problem with him. He was very, he was again very aggressive, very inventive. Never did the same thing twice, but it was often it wasn't that funny. Which was that was the only. That's not criticism.
When you were walking out with a dart in your head, going, well, I
Yeah,
enjoyed
but it
most
was-
of his act, but I thought the dart throwing was too fun.
But it was an extraordinary, you'd never seen nothing like that before. And again, he had that genuine sense of threat, genuine, sense of somebody who was kind of deranged, who could go one way. Well, and he's physically very. again, it's like Arabian Nights. We did a show together at the Albany Empire in Deptford, and it was like Scheherazade because I had to think of a different story every night to stop him getting his cock out on stage. Like I say, there's a party and nuns in tonight. Fair enough, there's little kids. My mum's in tonight. And then finally one night I just ran out of stories, and I said, fuck it, on you go. And he's one of those. He's one of those people. There was a lot of them. I don't know if they're still who. A lot of performers who like nothing more than taking all their clothes off.
Yeah.
Keith was one, Terry Jones, Tony Robinson's another, Simon Callow, I think. It's a kind of a subset of performers who love getting naked. And, finally I ran out of reasons to stop him, and there he was. Start bollock naked performing,
He does do it a lot. You say he never does the same thing twice, but he does
take
his cock out an
yeah.
awful lot.
With the exception.
That's pretty much every story.
Yeah.
Who wants to see my cock? It's where that whole story came from originally. And one of the first things I heard you in, and I guess, was this: you were in the Secret Policeman's Other Ball, which is an Amnesty International benefit that I listened to on a little cassette tape that you could buy cassettes in those days and listen to them like that.
Yeah.
And that was you. So you were in amongst, because it was quite a lot of the Oxbridge comedians. And the various Peter Cook and John Fortune and those kind of people, and John Cleese.
Yeah, it was. It was sort of. It was an odd. It was an odd experience. Because I was like massive in London. The Comedy Store, and then I think I was at the Comic Strip at that point. It was massive in London, but not really. Well, you didn't know whether you were known outside London, really. It was my ex-manager, my manager, who was producing it. But I think also they wanted to have who was obviously at the cutting edge of comedy, and so they asked me to be in the 1981. Yeah. I didn't. Cleese didn't like me much. His wife, he's married like 17 different American blonde psychoanalysts, and this was like number 8. She hated me. But I can't. It's funny because I'm working on volume 2 of my memoir at the moment now. But I remember having a big row with Jasper Carrott about, because we both had a gag. We both had a gag that finished with the punchline Guildford. And he said, well, I want to say Guildford. And I said, well, I want to say Guildford. So finally I said, who's on first? He said, you. I said, well, fuck you then. I said Guildford. It fucking killed. He changed his to Hatfield, and it fucking died on its own.
That's no good.
Because we both knew that Guildford was the only It's the only possible, you know. He couldn't do anything, you know, it's just one of them things where you know, it's one of them things where you know the only thing you can say is, Guildford!
Yeah. Hatfield, it's completely
Yeah,
wrong.
he went, Hatfield! He was all right about it. He was a nice bloke. You know.
But I bet in his heart as well. If you know in your heart it's not as funny, it doesn't work as well. That's the
He didn't
problem.
sell it, maybe, yeah.
So you know it's going to come up to that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And also, like one of my other guests and myself, although mine is slightly less high profile than yours, you've played Trinculo in The Tempest. I may have took, as has Russell Brand. You were in a Jonathan Miller.
Yeah.
Was it a stage production or a film?
It was the old Vic.
Yeah.
It was Max von Sydow was Prospero.
Right.
And
Wow.
Rudy Davis, who was one of Bella Brainbridge's daughters, was Miranda. And all the Islanders were black. And so Cyril Unruh was Ariel, and Rudy Davis was Caliban.
I did it at the Kings of Wessex School Hall. Steve Cheek was Caliban. John Butler was Stefano. Yeah, no one. Steve Cheek works as he was in a God and Jesus with. Do you remember when Simon Munnery? You might not have been around then in Edinburgh, but Simon Munnery and him used to do a double act called God and Jesus, which I think they were meant to be God and Jesus. Can you still remember any of the Trinculo speeches?
No, I did think for a while that I would only go to productions of The Tempest and then leave after Trinculo had been on. Now I can't remember a thing now. No. I put in an extra line which was bastards. Right. I'd say, bastards. And Jonathan Miller was very keen on me, doing that. So
yeah. And what was he like to work with? I saw him in the street a couple. It's kind of astonishing to see him still.
Yeah.
Going in.
He was very much at the height of his fame. Yeah. So, and it was the sort of thing people didn't. So sometimes you'd say, coming for rehearsals the afternoon, you'd say, "Where's Jonathan?" He'd say, "He's gone to Boston to direct an opera, and he'll be back tomorrow."
Right.
So he was all right. He didn't, he didn't. We didn't really hit it off, Max von Sydow sent me Christmas cards for years afterwards. Yeah, which was nice. He wasn't Death, was he? It was he played chess with Death in the Ingmar Bergman film, but yeah. So Max von Sydow sent me a Christmas card for years after that production.
And you, this is interesting. Now I've won a Sony Award, and you won a Sony Award in 1979. But in 1979, they were called the Pi Awards.
The Pi Radio Awards.
Was it the Paedophile Information Exchange Award? It was back in the 70s. Yeah. It was all right. No one. They could sponsor radio awards. We go, let's let the paedophiles have a. Let them have an award. It's all right. What did you? It won't be when this goes out. Would they do gold, silver, and bronze then, or was it just you won?
I think I just won it. Yeah.
For Alexei Sayle and the Fish People.
Yeah, it was a thing I did for Capital Radio. I can't remember much about it really, but I won two awards that year, and in both, the chairman of the judging panel in his speech began it by saying, "It's been a very poor year."
I see that someone on this list did not even go to Oxbridge. That is how...
Well, that was the fucking subtext.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck you.
St Catherine's College, Oxford. I'll ask you an emergency question. Not that we need it, but just to change the tone. Would you rather have a tit that dispensed talcum powder, like a breast, like a nipple?
Yeah.
It'd be a nipple with a breast behind it, full of talcum powder. As much as you wanted, an infinite amount of talcum powder. You'd never have to buy talcum powder again.
Yeah.
Which is probably true even if you didn't have or a finger that could travel through time, but just your finger. But you can send it anywhere in time and space, and you'd be able to see where it was, and you could do a small amount of stuff with it.
No contest. I mean, because I've got a tin of talcum powder. You've
got a tin or a tit?
A tin.
I've got a tin.
But it's metal. It's so old.
Yeah.
It's got like an offer on it for like horse whip or something. Like spats. It really is. I sometimes look at it because I think this is really old. One of the things I really like is finding stuff that's really past its sell-by date.
Yeah.
You're like finding a tin of kind of borlotti beans from like from Safeways. It doesn't exist anymore. It gives me a tremendous sense of pleasure. That I don't know why. And then to eat them as well. I mean, not just to, just. But I love well out of date stuff for itself. But no, that's obviously a finger.
What would you do? What would you use your finger for in time?
I'd like to see stuff,
Yeah, but you'd be able to see it with just through the hole. You wouldn't be able to. It would just be your finger going.
Something though, isn't it? Really.
It's something for your finger to be there.
See,
You could do stuff though.
I don't see how. Does it make a hole and then you pull it out and then the kind of gap remains for a bit?
Well, no, I think it would. That would be ridiculous. I think it would. It would close quite quickly. So you could go and you could look through and see. So you wouldn't just be poking around and not know where it's going. You'd be able to see around and then just
around
go,
the finger.
Okay, I'm going to poke Julius Caesar in the bum or something. Or go, oi, watch out! Look behind you. You could shout through, and you might get a little bit of a sort of tinny. Look behind, watch out, Julius Caesar! They're going to stab you.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, it'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah. What if?
That's not. I mean, I think you're going to have to rethink that question.
Why? It's good.
Well, there's too much of a disparity between.
That's what I like about it.
Oh, really?
Two people
Because
have
the one
chosen...
you asked me in the dressing room, which was a hand of ham, or what was the other?
Sun cream armpit, yeah.
Well, they're pretty. So there's a parity there.
But sometimes it's interesting to see.
A tit, which is feasible. A tit that dispenses talcum powder. It's a possibility, but a finger that we're stepping well outside the laws of time and physics.
Well, no, because there were wormholes in space, so you could find a wormhole and you could get your finger through it. Okay, all right, try this.
Talking to Robin Ince now.
Try this one. If your penis could travel in time, through a similar wormhole, who would you have sex with? In the past or the future, it could be, or just.
That's just like a glory hole. This is like it's a time-travelling glory hole.
It is. Yeah. No, I think there would have to be some system where you could communicate with the... Because I don't want you to... I don't like the idea of Alexei Sayle putting his cock through a wormhole and, Catherine of Aragon's there and you go, "Oi, get into that." I think Catherine... I bet Catherine of Aragon would have to go, "Well, yes, I am willing to take the..." If it was... I'm not saying she's a slag, Catherine of Aragon, because if anything, quite the opposite. She was very... she hardly even had sex with her husband. But I'm just saying I don't want it to turn into into an unpleasant scenario, a sort of boat that rocked scenario. I want it to be a consensual...
Right. How is consent obtained?
Well, we'd have to do some kind of... You'd whisper through. You go, "Hello, it's me, Alexei Sayle." Maybe you could put through a rolled up copy of your book or something, so they could read that. "Oh yeah, he's an interesting guy. I'd like to have sex with his disembodied penis from the past or future." Yeah. That's how I imagine this would work. And then you would put your penis through, and you could have sex with it. Well, who would you have sex with? In those circumstances, it's not exactly the same question as which historical figure would you have sex with, because there is this thing where it's just your disembodied penis. And the way you're looking at me as if I'm wasting your time. Like as if you haven't been asked this before.
You did get me to choose a savage sex with Keith Allen.
Keith Allen,
in Edinburgh.
That's so 2013. That we've moved on now. This is a very different question. Yeah. Is there anyone in history you would like to have?
Anybody nice?
Yeah, anyone nice?
Somebody nice would do. Who's not Hitler?
Not Hitler. You could teach him a lesson, couldn't you? You could teach Hitler a lesson. He might like it. No. Good. Well, we'll get back to. Do you find that, lots of middle-aged men approach you quoting stuff from the young ones at you a lot? Revolutionary biscuits a bit early. Rise up out of your boxes. You have nothing to lose but your wafers. That kind of thing. Does that happen a lot to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the bit they usually do to you? That bit, or
It's one of them. Yeah. And I was not. Well, it's not young. I mean, I was when I was doing a video thing for Telegraph, and we were up in Hull, and I was just going to have my photograph taken with the train crew, you know, just as a courtesy to Hull trains. And the photographer said, "Can you pull one of your funny faces?" No, not really. Yeah, no, I mean, not that. Yeah, people. Yeah, I mean, but often it's also they're not necessarily. You know, a lot of them are kids and stuff that they're they're young people that they're their parents or grandparents have turned them onto the young ones. So it's there's not necessarily an age thing to it. Oh, I mean, when I did stand up. Last year, the majority of the audience, which was very gratifying, the majority of the audience were under 35. I don't know what the fuck they were doing there. I don't know. I thought maybe I was on like the GCSE syllabus or something. So no, that was very gratifying, really, because I mean the thing that I wouldn't do it if I thought that I just appealed to, my own kind of demographic, really.
But you're saying, I think, that with the young ones kind of broke you through into sort of mainstream in a way that if maybe that hadn't happened. I mean, because it was always a weird thing, because you basically did your own bit in the young ones mainly, didn't you? You mainly kind of cut to you and you did a routine, basically. Yeah,
but I think it was, I mean, it's hard to know, really, but I think that I'd done some telly beforehand. I mean, mainly the late night thing called OTT, which had been a bit of a controversial kind of... I think I felt that I needed to be in something with people, with like-minded people that appealed to the youth audience, to our audience, but also that got a kind of that was highly regarded critically, which Young Ones wasn't at first, but gradually it was, obviously the Young Ones was also, was a highly, was an extraordinarily intelligent piece of writing, it's a wonderful, I mean, regardless of whether I'm in it or not, it's a fantastic piece of work, I think.
I think, but also it goes back to there being nothing like that before. So as a whatever I was, 14 or 15-year-old school kid, seeing this stuff coming in, and you would wait years for something to come on for you on TV. It would be like 3 years since Not That O'Clock News or whatever, 4 years, and there'd be no other programme for young people, and then this would come on. And so it was mind-blowing for
I think it must have been,
generation.
I mean, if you were you, which obviously you were, which you did a great job of. I mean, you did a wonderful... I imagine you were fantastic at that. But I imagine, it must have been the most thrilling thing to see the Young Ones, because it was good, and I think it still stands up. It's not, it's just so dense, so full of brilliant shit, I think. That, I mean, it's... I think it must have been marvellous to see it, and and reflected the spirit of the age and stuff, And also, that thing. I mean, it was like the BBC. That some of them, some of them episodes went on for like 35 minutes, and there'd be like, the invasion of the Ukraine or something. They just pushed the news back because the Young Ones was running, just whatever. You can make it about 30, like everything now has to be 29.73, seconds.
It was good. It was a happy time. The world was a better place back in the 1980s. Apart from the paedophile information exchange. Apart from that, it was much better. And you talked about OTT, because that was an interesting one as well. Because I think the other comedy show that really probably first blew my mind was Tiz Was, which was an OTT was the sort of adult version of that. But it was slightly misjudged, probably, in that the kind of beauty of Tiz was that it was an adult show, but it was a kid show.
Yeah, you're in it. Well, it was adults just being horrible to kids, really. In the guise of a kids show, so you were in on the joke, but the adult viewer was in on the joke, whereas with OTT, there was no joke to be in on, as it were, and it was very. I remember like the show used to go out on the Saturday and they'd start sort of thinking about sketches for that week's show on the Friday. So it was very laid back. And it was there. I mean, Chris Tarrant's taste and all the other people, Bob Carol G's and Spit the Dog, they were, well, Spit the Dog liked me, but Carol G's didn't, you know. That they, they soon developed a rift. I refused. I was supposed to be one of the players. I was supposed to be in the sketches, but they were so bad. I just said, I'm not fucking being in any of these sketches. So that was a point of tension, and so I'd just come on, do my bit, and also it was live, and I didn't think. I mean, but I personally was that year's the report of the commission that oversaw ITV. Yeah. The kind of the supervisory body, the ICC, or whatever it was, specifically mentioned me and some of the stuff I'd said as being a kind of low point in television that year, and a kind of regulatory nightmare. Yeah. And I think I did probably cause a lot. I mean, I caused Chris a lot of grief just with some of the stuff I improvised.
It wasn't. It doesn't seem like a natural marriage between.
No, I mean, I shouldn't have done it, really. And that's one of the things where you don't know. Well, I was so desperate to be on the telly that I kind of, kind of accepted it, but suspecting that it really wasn't the right thing for me to be in. And now, I mean, that's one of the things, I mean, younger comics now, they judge things better, don't they? They say, no, I'll wait until...
Yeah, well, sometimes. I mean, I think, there's an element where I think people should just have a crack and do stuff. I think you can be too choosy as well, and you can be too like, oh, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that. That's what about being... I don't think comedians should really have to be cool, really, because they're not. I suppose so.
I suppose I just felt that I depended on a kind of... a critic, a certain kind of status, and not so, and if I did something that was too demeaning, then that would, that would destroy, because when it wasn't quite, I wasn't there yet, I wasn't quite a star, and so I worried terribly that I would do something that, that would destroy my status, and I'd never. There,
Well, yeah, it was. I mean, I think it wasn't. I mean, you left it, didn't you? So I think that was the right choice. All I remember is because I was 14 or 13, or whatever the time was, naked girls sort of getting up on tables and jumping around.
Yeah, there's a lot. Well, they did the.
So I was distracted away from your bits by that.
Well, the big hit on the opening night was Malcolm Hardy in The Greatest Show, and Legs did the balloon dance, and again, you saw, did naked, you saw their cocks. That was the bit my mother said was best. That's the bit she liked the best.
Malcolm Hardy's cock.
Yeah, a familiar sight again.
It is.
He's another one to add to that list, wasn't he, really?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
isn't it weird how alcoholics choose to live on houseboats? There's a lot of alcoholics. If you're an alcoholic, you think, I'm a heavy drinker. To get home, I'm going to cross a rickety bridge over mud flats that will suck me under until I, no matter how much I struggle, I will drown. That's the fucking gaff for me, isn't it? That's where I'm going to live, and that's what Malcolm did when he drowned.
He did. Well, you sort of wonder whether that was part of the plan, because I don't think he would be. I don't think he would have enjoyed being old,
No, when I read the autopsy report, or it was on Wikipedia, I think, but the police report said he was found with a bottle of beer clutched in his hand, face down in the mud like that with a bottle,
The beer was more important.
He probably could have swum. Yeah, he probably could have got free, but he wouldn't let go of the beer.
Got to keep his thumb in the top to make sure no water gets there.
Somebody said as well, I don't know if it's apocryphal, that he'd won really big on the one-armed bandit that night. So his pockets were full of change.
We're laughing affectionately at the death of a man. But it's all part of the legend. It does become part of the legend. He was a legendary guy. Tell me about, I'm interested in your last gig in 1996. You were in Perth.
Yeah.
And you decided to give up doing stand-up comedy in Perth, which is, this is the Australian Perth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is possibly understandable, but do you remember much about that day?
No, I'd found that, I've been very unhappy with the tour, really, that I toured in 95 in Britain, and that had sort of gone all right, really, but the tour of Australia 96. It hadn't. I'd done a tour in maybe 90 or 92 in Australia, where it was the only time that ever happened to me where all the gigs sold out right away, and we put in extra nights. Like I did 5 nights at the State in Sydney and 3 nights at the Concert Hall in Melbourne, and like 5 nights in Perth and stuff. And when I went back in 96, for whatever reason, that wasn't the case really. That we did all the gigs that we were booked, and they were all sold out, but there was no extra, it was no, for whatever reason, there wasn't a buzz there. So that was dispiriting. And also, I just reached the end of what I could do with that persona, really, and I didn't know how to move on from it. So I was just very, I was just unhappy. I mean, the shows were funny and stuff, but I was just very unhappy with what I was doing, really.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think it happens a lot. I mean, I guess it's the hotel rooms of being around the world. I mean, Hancock.
Yeah.
We go back to another hilarious comedy death, but I think you can understand it, especially if you're a thinker and a depressive, when you get stuck in those hotels on the other side of the world as well.
Yeah,
if the gigs aren't going great.
Yeah.
It is quite depressing.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that. I mean, there was a bit of that, but I mean, it wasn't. It was also, I think I felt, because the stand-up I did last year, I just loved it so much because it had a kind of, because I was just, it was anecdotal and I was being me, and it was complex, I felt happy with the material, where there was always an element, particularly towards the end of what I was doing before in the tight suit and all that, where it was kind of grotesque. There was a kind of, I was doing bits sort of to get laughs, really, a bit. I mean, still making it.
It's an awful thing for a comedian to do.
To get.
Do not
well,
go
still
for
still in a way that still while doing material about Bertolt Brecht and stuff like that. So it wasn't like I was really pandering to the audience, but I just felt that there wasn't a kind of. I was just itching to really do material that was much more complicated, really, and I knew I couldn't do that. I thought I couldn't do that via stand-up comedy.
Right. And that's kind of interesting. I think it's also interesting to have, you obviously didn't do stand-up for a long time and now you've come back to it. But I think in a sense, having that fallow time, and it happens, Stuart had it to an extent where he sort of gave up doing stand-up for 2 or 3 years and then came back to it. And in a way, to have not necessarily a failure, but I think you're looking at the people you worked with and they've gone on to do different things and become sort of successful in their own right, and then it's kind of dispiriting. But actually, to become good as a artist, as a comedic artist, you sort of need the failure or to regroup a little bit, perhaps.
Definitely, yeah. No, I mean, I don't. I became an author really after a few years of sort of thrashing about. My first, selection of short stories came out in about, I think, 99, and I was entranced with being an author for a good 12 years, and so very slowly that I went back to stand-up. But I mean, I don't know. Some people can keep doing it and evolve, But through doing book readings, I'd found a whole new way to do stand-up, and it was, it was just something that I was just terribly happy with, when I went back to it, really. But I don't know. I mean, you don't. I mean, it doesn't do any harm to have that kind of those dips in your career.
And also, I think if you don't experience failure, though, and if everything, it's sort of you turn into. I think for me, that's what's happened to Ben Elton. He hasn't experienced failure. He's been able to do everything he ever want to do.
Yeah.
And then you just don't move. You don't grow as an artist, and then you suddenly do something that people go, oh no, that's just terrible. So
because
and I think
certainly experiencing it now.
Yeah. So, which I'm sure you're not delighted about. but I think that is, you get to the point where everyone's saying yes to you, yes, and do this, and actually you've got to be knocked back and go, oh, so actually I can't just put the first draft of this sitcom in and put that out. I have to go back and write a second draft. Wow. So I think to be knocked back probably helps you.
I think you're making a virtue of that, aren't you?
Well, for myself.
Your own stuttering career. You're trying to say, it's better to be like this.
I haven't gone up again though. I've just kind of gone down.
It's bumping along the bottom. Yeah.
I'm hoping.
Yeah. I don't know. I I don't know if... it's an interesting analysis of what went wrong with Ben, and that's probably true, yeah. For me, a lot of the stuff I did was, tried to do was so hard or so stupid that, it was never going to succeed, really, or, so I was always going to experience a lot of failure, I'd say that I only ever had that one tour where, in Australia, where everything sold out. I never had that, even when at the height of my height in Britain, there was always, like we were talking backstage, there was always a couple of gigs that didn't sell out, where you'd have to go on fucking radio, you'd have to go up to fucking Bournemouth a day early to do local radio to try and sell the seats, which is something that I hated. So I never really I don't really think I had that experience of kind of unfettered success ever, more or less, really,
But then I think you're also quite hard on yourself, and I think, it's both wanting to be, do the best you can be as a comedian and be an amazing comedian, but also there is all part of every comedian, I think, that still wants to be loved and successful. And so there's an odd kind of dichotomy there that you're almost fighting internally between yourself. It feels
yeah. I did. Yeah. Well, I did make it. It was very uncompromising, my show. If I felt things were getting too cozy, I would sort of turn on the audience and so on, and so it wasn't, wasn't easy.
But you are also doing, you were in major movies and acting and Indiana Jones, you in Gorky Park.
Yeah, my first one. Yeah, but I was never in one that really, apart from the Indiana Jones, I was never really.
Yeah, Indiana Jones did all right. That was okay.
That was okay. But I was only like a tiny part in that. I never really had that. As an actor, I never really quite, got that great role, really,
No.
to it.
But there's a lot, I just feel with acting, there's so much luck in it. In getting cast, but B, in the thing becoming successful. And then if the thing is successful, you're sort of made and people will employ you forever on the basis of something that someone else wrote anyway. It's an odd job.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. It might have been nice if I'd had that. It's,
There's still time.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah,
Carry On Columbus was close.
My episode of New Tricks that I did in 2012, that might win a kind of a special BAFTA for something.
So apparently, you see certain... you did a recent interview where you talked quite candidly about the comedians you like and the comedians you don't like.
Yeah.
But luckily, I just nipped into what you call your comedy children.
Yeah. I had to do a bit of apologetic emailing after that. I sometimes think with doing those that was at the Leicester Comedy Festival. You sometimes think you forget these days that it's not just the people in the room who are watching. It's everything goes everywhere. So
feel free to slag anyone else off that you like. If you are my comedy dad, though, can you send me some money on my birthday?
No, I'll send you an educational present. So it's good for you.
That would be good.
That's the other thing about... You sometimes forget when you're doing stuff like this or like that talk at the Leicester Comedy Festival is that people expect you to kind of listen to yourself and to sort of believe what you say.
Yeah.
Which is never... As particularly in terms of having opinions, I've always just kind of said stuff really with... Have I never snagged you off, you and Stuart off?
No, I don't. You might have done. I don't think you have, actually. I think we didn't really make enough of an impact to be slagged off. And then by the time you heard of us, we were doing, quite good stuff. So.
Yeah. If you'd been more successful in your early days, I would have said something shitty about you. I don't know. I quite like it. I don't mind. I quite like people who've been horrible about me. I rather like that. I sort of respect them for that.
I was being interviewed for a podcast yesterday, and because it's like this, they go on so long, you just sort of start saying something, and then you go, but on the other hand, I totally disagree with what I've just said.
Yeah. and so sometimes it's something you sort of believed like in 1997, but you don't believe it anymore, but you've forgotten that you don't believe it anymore. Sort of thing, you know what I mean? So you just find yourself saying it.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go for an emergency question. I don't know if I asked you this one before. If I did, we'll just gloss over it. Alexei Sayle, this is terrible that I have to ask this question. I don't have to, but I'm going to. You are one of my comedy heroes. Have you ever tried to suck your own cock?
No.
Well, you must have done.
No. I'm not that, I know I'm not that limber. That
Even when
is it possible? There's
It is,
footage
well-
of Michael Flatley doing it, isn't it?
the
apparently?
Michael Flatley is supposed allegedly.
Allegedly,
You're
yeah.
going to have to email Michael Flatley in the
Oh,
morning.
yeah.
Sorry, I said you could say. I think there is a picture of him somewhere doing it. If you
I
look
knew
for
it was never possible.
I think it is. It is possible. In fact, it is possible. I may have mentioned this before in this podcast. I apologise if I do. But I did a whole book about penises and a show about penises. And in my research, I discovered it's possible for certain people to get a semi-erection that they can stretch round and have anal sex with themselves.
Really?
It's a beautiful act of love, self-love. There was a story about a man in a Russian prison, like and then he was obviously a bit crazy.
Yeah.
And he sat all day. Well, I mean, if you could, maybe you would. David, do you think? No, David doesn't seem to think so. You'd be something to pass the time. If you were in a Russian prisoner of war camp or gulag or whatever, then it would pass the time, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So
true.
it is possible to do. It is possible, but when you're a younger man doing, you're a limber younger man. I'm not going to ask you to try it now. Okay. I'll ask you another emergency question because I need one after that emergency question. Have you ever seen a ghost?
I've ever seen a ghost.
Yeah.
No, I don't really believe in them. So I mean,
Doesn't mean you don't have to believe in it to see it. You can still give the.
Well, I don't know then, do I? Really? I've never seen nothing that seemed like a ghost.
Yeah.
I've never had any kind of paranormal experiences whatsoever. No, nothing.
Have you ever seen a Bigfoot?
No.
No. We were taking a chance with that. I'll tell you what I was going to ask. These have got a couple of stand-up based questions.
Yeah.
What is your worst, have you got a worst hotel travelling experience and touring in a hotel, bed and breakfast or wherever you stayed whilst travelling?
Not that well. I was thinking about this the other day that I used to because I had like at one point I had a little band called Studio 2 do the support and do my music, and I used to stay in the hotel Swank de Posh, and I used to put them where all the doilies went. They used to stay in like the B&B where all the claimants went.
Right.
So they had some pretty terrible experiences.
Whilst you were in your big
I was eating consomme.
Because we stayed in some pretty me and Stu once stayed in a bed and breakfast where we had to share a room and we had twin beds with pink covers on and a little canapé going between the two. It was very sweet. I wish we'd taken a photo of that. And recently I stayed in a travel lodge when I went into a room and there was someone else's bogey on the shower curtain.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty
no.
nasty.
When I early days I played Dublin with Alternative Cabaret, and Linda had got an Irish. She paid 50p to find out an Irish tourist board recommended hotel, which was this place called the Adelphi, and remember the bloke showing us up the stairs, and there was no bulb. There was a broken fish tank in the lobby, and there was no bulb on the stairs, and we just showed into this horrible room. And I noticed there was writing kind of carved into the wardrobe, and it said, obviously the chalk outline of a body on the floor. It said on the wardrobe, it said, if you think the room's bad, wait until you have the breakfast.
Oh dear. Once when I was in Swansea, I've definitely said this before. The toilet was in the same room as the bed. It was like there was obviously there used to be a cupboard.
Oh right, yeah.
But it wasn't big enough to fit a toilet in, and there was no door in it.
Yeah.
So the toilet was just in a very slight alcove.
Yeah.
So you were here, and I didn't stay in that. I got a lift home.
Yeah.
Went back to London. Oh dear, happy days. And the thing I enjoyed you saying in your recent interview was that Benedict Cumberbatch is a wonderful actor, but if my cat had had the facilities he had at Eton, my cat could be in Sherlock.
Yeah. Was pointed out he went to Harrow, but it's all the subsequently. Same. But yeah, no, it is, it's because I was reading, some interview with Ray Fiennes, somebody was saying to him about, you know, all the posh actors. He's going, oh, you know, class is the curse of Britain. You know, if you're a good actor, you're going to work. I mean, fuck off. I mean, it's not. You know, at Eton they have their own studio theatre. They have a seamstress. They have, you know, permanent director, and so they, you know, they have ball. I mean, but you know, I mean, they are all fine actors. Tom Hiddleston, you know, Damien West, Dominic West, Damien Lewis. You know, all those people. They are very, very good actors, but they are taking somebody else. You know, they would have done something else. You know, years ago, they wouldn't have gone into acting. They would have gone into the city or whatever. They are taking the roles of working class.
Well, and also
actors.
they can afford, because I think it's harder to get into these, both comedy and acting now, because there's a lot of stuff to get through. So if you don't have, you know, they've got an income that they can survive on.
Yeah.
And just go, I'll go and live with my mum and dad while I'm doing
Yeah.
this. But you know, if you can't, when I moved to London, we could hire rent out a house and pay 50 quid a week and just about survive on that.
Yeah.
But now you'd have to live outside of London,
Right.
basically, on what we were earning back then. And,
Yeah,
and so you don't, if you're rich, you can.
Yeah, and it's just,
ride that
you know,
stuff.
it's just terribly unfair. I mean, if you've got all those advantages, then, you know, you are going to use them and that. But don't pretend it's not, you know, it's not an injustice, because it is, you know. And it also, I think it does, you know, as I said, I think it skews the narrative. You have, if the people from a very narrow socio-economic band are telling our stories back to us, then it kind of, you know, there's a whole, the majority of experience and most people is excluded from that, really, you know, in terms of, you know, it's just right. I mean, it's just unjust, you know.
Yeah, well, and what I love about comedy and stand-up comedy, if it works, is that it doesn't matter what background you've come from. You've got to be able to make people laugh. And I love that when you're in a room full of guys and you go, oh, you did this, you did this, you did this.
Yeah.
But it is increasingly becoming, and you were at this university and you were at this university, which I suppose is partly because more people go to university, but it's also, it seems a shame that there isn't that variety. But how do we address that?
I don't know. It's difficult because, you know, I say that, you know, people. I think people's parents now, they think it's an okay job to be a comedian now, and you see you're getting your Jack Whitehalls and your Miranda Arts and stuff like that, and you're getting all these posh actors because it's okay. It's what they want to do now, and they push aside, you know, people with less resources. I don't know. There's not, you know, you can't have quotas or. I don't know what you can do about it, really, apart from go on. You know, there's that scene in, I always love that scene in The Sopranos where Carmela goes to see this old-fashioned Jewish psychiatrist, and she tells him right away what her husband does, Tony Soprano does, and he says, well, you must leave him. And she says, well, you know, makes excuses. And he says, no, he gives her money back, and he says, you know, just, you know, stay with him if you want, but don't pretend you weren't told, you know? Don't pretend you didn't know. And it's the same with, all you can do is say this stuff is unfair, you know, the kind of class, you know, the nature of how all the actors now are been to Eton or Harrow, you know. And more than that, I don't know what you do about it, really. Yeah. I can't suggest policy, you know.
Well, I think, you know, the Conservatives are sort of shutting down drama in schools. I think they're talking about getting rid of the drama O level, and so
maybe, I don't know, maybe, you know, working class kids go into engineering or something more sensible, you know.
Yeah, well, that's
fine in a way.
Good point.
Yeah,
and most British drama is just really posh people in old houses, so maybe it's good.
Yeah.
Maybe it's good that the posh just get to play themselves. Oh dear, well that's depressing. We'll wrap it up. So you've been in Doctor Who?
Yeah. Revelation of the Daleks, 1987.
Which Doctor?
The best Doctor, I think. Colin Baker.
Colin Baker.
Really, the definitive. You know, Peter Capaldi is a very, very good friend of mine, and I was telling him that, you know, the Colin Baker is definitely the best Doctor, really. For a long time, I was the last person killed by a Dalek. But he said, I think some of the same people are still playing the Daleks now as were when I did it in 1987. Because they're all sort of ex-dancers. Right. For some reason the BBC thought when they had these, they just move them around with their feet, you know. We need dancers to do this. They were young when they hired them in the, when they for the Daleks first appeared. They were like 20-year-old boys from the chorus, and now they're in their 70s or whatever. But they're still they're the same guys.
I did an audio Doctor Who. Mentioned Colin Baker was the Doctor.
Oh right, okay.
But then I insulted him because I made a joke in one of my newspaper columns about him. He takes things very, very seriously.
Does he?
Yeah, I talked about. I made some joke about him being not the best Doctor Who.
And you had to do it.
It was very light.
Did you have to apologise to him?
I tweeted him and said, look, I'm a massive... I know, I work with you. And actually, we were a big fan of... We put him in Time, Gentlemen, Please, the thing I wrote, the sitcom I wrote. And he came in and did a cut. And I was saying, look, we are... I was only joking. It's a big fan. No, that's another person I have to cut off and never speak to again. Cunt. So... you can't bear grudges, can you, Alexei?
I don't. No, I don't. I
can't.
can't. I don't think I do.
Well, look, it's been absolutely fantastic for you to do this and meet you again. Thank you for coming when you're a little bit ill. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexei Sayle! Alexei Sayle. Unbelievable. Thank you very much.
How'd you like them sky potatoes?